Hi guys and welcome back. So today we're going to be fitting a new exhaust to the S4. Whoa, hang on a minute Bernie. You've already done the exhaust on it. Well, yes I have and no I haven't. So we've already done the front half but I haven't actually been able to do anything at the back half, and we've still got a few issues with it and I feel like it could be a bit better. So we've done the front half but we haven't done anything with the back half. As you can probably tell, the tips are a little bit out of alignment and they look a bit lost in that diffuser now as well. Unfortunately, the way it's been made, we can't do anything about either of those. So with this exhaust being the way that it is, there's not too much we can actually do about the alignment. So it's only really left us with two options. We either buy a new exhaust for it or we modify the one on it, and I think you know where I'm going next. So let's show you the exhaust. Here it is then, a used second-hand new to me exhaust, and I know it doesn't look perfect at all right now, but if you're anything like me, you love finding yourself a good deal, and I think that's what I've got myself right here. So let me explain. For some time now, the exhaust has been doing my head in, and it's something that I've wanted to sort out. When I looked at new exhausts, the bare minimum was somewhere around £1,200 for a decent one. So I thought to myself, I wonder if there's anything else out there, second hand, that will solve the issue. So trying to find a half decent one second hand at bare minimum, I was looking at about £800. I'm not entirely sure how, but I came across this on eBay for about £300. And I thought that looks identical to a Cobra exhaust I've just seen, which might not be for an S4, but the RS4 and the S4 are pretty much identical underneath, as well as the S5. So I went back into their website and looked at how much it was new. It was between £1,500 and £1,600. So I thought, I wonder if we can fix that and we'll have the exact same exhaust. So I put a cheeky offer in for £150, and a couple of days later they'd accepted it. So I went to collect it, and that brings us up to now. I think we can fix it, buy some new tips for it, and we've got a £1,500 exhaust for £200. And yes, it does have quite a bit wrong with it, but you know what they say, one man's rubbish is another man's treasure. So we need to do quite a bit to fix on this to get it in a half decent condition to put onto the car. So let me show you what we need to do. So what's happened on one back box, both the pipes each end are pretty much completely broken away at the welds, and that's something that we need to sort out, as well as a crack on the other one. The middle section itself is actually okay. So what we can do is fix it back together, weld it back up, get some new tips on it, and then we can put it on the car. It's going to sound good, it's going to look good, and it's a good exhaust for next to nothing. And I know some of you might be thinking, what the hell is that? What are you doing? It'd be on repair and you'd write it off as scrap. But I think we can repair this, and we've got ourselves a really good deal, considering these are usually £1,400. I've only paid 150 quid for it, which I think is pretty good. So what we need to do now, of course, is weld up the defects on it, fix it all up, and then we can put it on the car. You might think I'm completely crazy and wasting time, money and effort on it, but I think we can get away with fixing it. So let's try and do that. We're going to start off by cleaning up all the areas that need to be repaired with a wire brush, and then we're going to move on to welding. Right, so this one was pretty tricky to do, and all I've done is I've aligned it by eye and I've just tapped it around the edge. I've mocked it up a few times and I've just tack welded it there. I've done it by eye and I've aligned it with that one, and side by side I'd say they look pretty equal, and that's a pretty good job done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish off, go around the outside of it, and then all the welding's done. So all the welding's done now, we're near enough ready to put them back on the car. But before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to get the old tips off. And some of you might now rightly be doubting the quality of how it's done. If we give it a shake, can't hit anything inside of there. So I'd say it's a pretty good job, and I'm more than happy to put them on. So let's get these tips off and get them back on. so it was all going well until I started trying to get his sleeve off, which has been an absolute nightmare. But I flipped it around and I noticed just down here, there's a very small crack starting to show, so I'm not sure if I've missed it or if it's from me trying to hammer this off. So I'm going to stitch that back up and we'll get back to it. And there we go, so I've quickly welded it up and we're going to carry on. So because it's so difficult to get off, I'm thinking what I might do is put a clamp on it and try and hit the clamp off when it's all tied up, and that might help it. But that weld now, it should hold, so let's see how we get on. Did you get a load of that? That was a lot easier, so I'm going to do exactly the same on the other one, and I'm just going to cut that bolt straight off. Right, both these are off now, and it's much easier putting the clamp on trying to hit them off. So I've just had a quick look around the outside. I've noticed a very small little hairline crack here. Not quite as bad as that one, but a minor crack. So I'm going to quickly do that, and then these are good to go in the car. That's all sorted now, so these are ready to go on. Right, so now what we need to do is get the old exhaust off, and we're going to start off by taking this diffuser off, get it out of the way, and then we need to work on the fitment later, which we're going to try and solve. Right, the middle section is near enough ready to go on, but what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get this old clamp off, put a new one on, and put another one on the other side. So let's get that off. Right, so I've got the clamps on now, and I thought it would be a good idea to check them side by side before I put it on. And it's a good job I've done that, because what I've noticed is I've got the mounts roughly in the right spot, but down here, this one we're going to be putting on the car is a little bit longer, so I'm not entirely sure if it's going to work straight away or fit straight up. But what we're going to try and do now is put it on as it is and see if we can make it work. If it doesn't, what we're going to need to do is modify the front half to try and make this fit. So let's try and put it on and see if it works. And just when I thought it would be easy from here on out, how the turntables. Right, so that's the problem. As you can see, this is absolutely miles off. So I'm not entirely sure yet how we're going to get around it, but you can see that needs to come at least an inch, probably 3 inches back for it to actually fix up properly. And the other one is even further off than that. So it's not all going to plan, is it? One idea is what I might need to do is cut a couple inches off here and then move this all the way up, take a couple inches off it and weld it on up here. Then what I also need to do is maybe cut this down a bit more here, trim about an inch off there, and that'll allow us just that extra bit of clearance. I'm not too sure. I'll probably need to do some measurements and try and figure it out. Right, so it's a shame that it doesn't fit straight up. I need to have a little bit of a think and figure out how I'm going to go about it. And talking about thinking, I'm still thinking in the back of my head about how quick this car is going to be from a 0 to 60. And we absolutely definitely need new clutch in it before then. But at the same time, I still feel like we need a bit more of an accurate lap timer. And in some of the S3s I've had in the past, I've had a lap timer built into the display in them. But I was a bit surprised on this that when I went to try and look for it and flick through all the settings, nothing came up. But what I do know with some of these VAG cars is that they have hidden features and settings which you can code in and unlock. And what we're going to be using to code it in is Carly. What is Carly? Well, Carly is an OBD diagnostic tool which we can connect to our phone via Bluetooth to diagnose any faults in our car as well as code things in. So I've been sent this by Carly to test, and hopefully we should be able to code it in with this and unlock a few other hidden features on it. So let's plug it in and see what it's capable of. To start off, what we need to do is plug this into the OBD port in the car as well as downloading the app. Right, so I've connected to the car now and I've scanned it, and apparently the status of my vehicle is very bad, which isn't good. So it's got around 20 issues on here, and it's come up with a reading on the mileage and the issues that I've got. So I'm going to go into Diagnostics now and see if they're just stored fault codes, or you know, if there's something else at play. I'm just going to clear the issues and see what comes back. We're not going to worry about that. The stored codes have all been cleared, so that all works okay. Right, so let's move on to coding. So up here then, what we're going to do is go into coding, tap it on here, and we're going to press continue. Check coding possibility, so it's going to read some of the data and see what we can actually code on it, which is probably going to be quite interesting. So on here then, we've got 3 different possibilities. One's for alarm, brakes, control, all stuff like that. And then we've got central electronics, coming home lights, running lights, all things like that. So we could do stuff like different indicators, fog lights on, just change all that stuff. But the one we want to go on to now is combi, which is stuff to do with the dashboard. So on here then, we've got stuff like a seatbelt reminder. So if you've got a weight on your passenger seat and then you're not in it or something like that, you can just turn that off, which is pretty good to have, because you know, otherwise it will set that annoying beep off. And then stuff like speedometer test, I don't know what that is, to be honest, but it says on. I think that's where the needle sweep, which I quite like, so I'm going to leave that on. And then we've got what we want here, so the lap timer is off as well, so we can turn that on and we should have a lap timer. The other stuff on here then, we've got shift suggestion, so it will tell you when to change gears, stuff like that. I'm not bothered about that, to be honest, so I'll probably leave that off. Speed warning, I'll leave that off for certain reasons. And then washer fluid level warning off. I might turn that on, to be fair, just nice reminder. So I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to turn the illumination on. I'm going to also put that on. So all the illumination's on. Set a lap timer on. Okay, so they're all selected now and ready to code it. But before we do that, I'm also going to put a battery charger on this, because if you're ever doing any coding, you always want to make sure you've got more than 12.2 volts, let's say, when you're coding, because the last thing you want is to code something, it to go wrong, your battery to die. Well, yeah. If you can help it, try and put battery charger on. Just make sure your voltage doesn't drop too low. So now that's done, we're ready to code it. I'm going to press code now, see what happens. Hopefully it shouldn't take too long. Oh, that was quick. So the coding's done. It says turn the ignition on and off. I'm going to take the battery charger off, and then I'll turn the ignition on and off, and we'll see if it works. Okay, so we've got the ignition on now, and I'm going to press the bottom button on the stalk now, and it literally goes straight onto that timer, which is pretty good. So it's also got an oil temp bit at the top, which is cool as well. I'm not sure how it's going to work, we'll figure it out. Oh yeah, top button on there. So now that's done, we're ready to time it properly when we get a new clutch. Right, so I have heard mixed reviews on Carly, but so far I can't fault it. We can read codes on it, we can do coding, and we can clear them too. So to me, for a quick sort of DIY on the road sort of solution, it's nice and compact. It seems like a really good bit of kit. Of course, it's not meant to be like a dealer level sort of software, but for quick and easy, it seems really good so far. So if you do want one of these, use the link in the description down below, and don't forget to use discount code Bernie15. Let's get back to that exhaust. Now we still need to try and figure out how we're going to make this exhaust work, and how we can make these downpipes work with the other half of the exhaust. So I took a few measurements, and I figured the best thing to do would be to take the downpipe straight off the car and do it that way, as it would be way easier. Plan then is to cut 2 inches off at this end, same again here, cut this 2 inches off, and what I'm going to do is when I've cut this off, I'm going to leave about 10mm here, slide it on and weld it onto this, so I won't need a clamp here anymore. Same pretty much on this end, but once I've cut this bit off, this 2 inches here, I'm going to slide this along, and I'm literally just going to weld this straight on, and that should give us more than enough room, and that means that this end can slide into the new part. So we're going to start off by removing all the clamps and breaking them down into 2 different pieces ready to be cut. It feels like everything I did last time I may as well have not done, but it is what it is. Now we've broken them apart, we just need to take a few measurements before we get it started cutting. So we need to take a couple of inches out at each side roughly. I came up with the idea of putting a clamp on and marking it to try and gauge how long I was going to cut them, and then just going around it with a marker pen. I measured each resonator to be about 39 inches long, so I took about 30mm off each end, and that should be just about right to make it work. After my first cut, I did a couple of quick checks to make sure it was where we wanted it to be. Taking about 30mm off one end, doing the same each side, we take off about 2 inches overall, and leaving about 10mm each end for us to weld on. Now I knew where we stood, I slotted the end of this one to make it easy to fit, and then started cutting away at the downpipe to try and make it work. Right, there we go then, it pretty much fits up okay, so I've ground it down a little bit and it pretty much fits up against that lip. So the last little bit I need to do is trim it up to the edge of that black lip there, and then we'll give it a test fit. Not bad if you ask me. So that should solve our issue. We just need to cut that end off now, weld the other bit on. Now that will sort of cut both the sleeves down, so you stick out the end of each one about 2 inches, and that should be just where we want it to be. And now that I had one downpipe done, I repeated the exact same on the other side. Now that's all done, all it's left to do is weld them together. And there we go, not bad at all if you ask me. They're all done now and they're near enough ready to go back on the car. I'm pretty impressed with how the welding's come out, to be fair. Of course, I'm not a welder, but before I put it back on, I'm going to let them cool down a bit and we'll rewrap this. They might look good, but have they actually solved the problem? And how well are they going to fit? Like a glove. There we go, so that's not a bad fit at all if you ask me. So let's get the back boxes on. And while we're there, we'll also sort the fitment issues out with the rear diffuser. So I'm just going to drill a couple of holes in the diffuser and the bumper and put a couple of cable ties in there just to hold it in place. Should be easy now, shouldn't it? And you would think that's all we have to fix now, isn't it? No, this is where we ran into yet another problem. Just when I thought it was done, it's got even more complicated. See, each side is a little bit too far to the left in my opinion. So I'm thinking that might be because the hangers are slightly off, or it could be because the RS4 that's come off is a little bit wider at the rear, so the bumper's probably a bit wider. That's probably what that is, so I think we can get around it though. So my idea is we can either bend the hanger, maybe cut it, and we can just push that pipe further down and that should hopefully take it out. It is what it is, and I bet a lot of you are probably laughing thinking, yeah, it was never going to fit because it was off an RS4. But to be fair, they're near enough the same car, so it's not far off and we can still make it work. Okay, so I've got the back boxes off now, and having a look at them, I think I figured out why, and you can probably tell as well. So here, on each one, the hanger's been cut off, and I don't know why I didn't think about it. I thought it was a different hanger maybe, got cut off and replaced, but I think what they've done is they've cut each hanger off on each box, swapped them over and welded them on the opposite side for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure. What I'm going to do now is cut these hangers back off, swap them back over to where they're meant to be, and hopefully that should solve the issues out. No matter how much hassle this was going to be for me at this point, I wasn't just going to throw the towel in. I was going to see this through till the end, and I was going to get this exhaust on, even if that means cutting and welding it 10 different times. We've got most of it on, we can see it through till the end. So what I'm trying to do now is figure out where this hanger is actually going, and I think these aren't even the original hangers. I think there's some aftermarket ones, because when I've looked closer they do look a bit different. So I think we might weld them in the same spot almost, but kind of upside down like that. So now I've cut the hanger off, that solved the main issue, and the alignment is pretty much bang on. But what I'm going to do first is get all the exhaust aligned properly, and then we can try and figure out where we're going to weld that hanger on. Okay, now that we've got that sorted, I'll show you what tips we're putting on it. Right, so here are the tips that I'm going to be putting on it. They're just some generic sort of aftermarket tips. I've got my eBay for about £60, and I would have probably just got cable runners and bolted them straight on, but I can imagine they're about double the money, and these still look pretty good. You know, not everyone's cup of tea, but I quite like the look of them. I think it's slash cut or something like that. So I think these look good. Of course, we do need to adapt them as well, so I'm going to cut them down a bit and we'll mock it up as well just to get everything spot on. And I'm thinking something like that will look pretty good, so let's get on with it. I started off by putting the front clamps in and making a few adjustments to the back. Once I got that done, I used sleeves that I cut off the front resonators to get the tips roughly lined up. I figured out that I need to cut about 1 inch off each one. After that, I gave them a quick test fit to check them. Once I was happy with that, I still needed to tackle the bolt in the middle of the exhaust for a perfect alignment, and because it looked so rusty, I didn't want to take any risk with it, so I used a blowtorch and it came off with ease. Now that was sorted, we needed to weld the tips onto their sleeves, followed by a fine alignment. to get the alignment perfect, I used a couple of blocks to align everything, as well as making some marks to make sure nothing was going to move. And with that all done, finally it's time to weld the hangers on. I started off with a couple of tack welds while they were on the car to make sure they were going to sit in the right place. Now that was okay, I took them off the car to finish the rest of the welding because I wanted to make sure they were properly welded on there so they weren't going to break off. And finally they're all done and ready to put back on. Okay, so now they're done, all we need to do is bolt them back on. Finally then we're done, so I don't know about you, but I think we should take it out and see what it's like. It's taken long enough, and honestly it's been a nightmare getting to this point. I didn't think it would actually have this much involved in it, or I probably would have given it a miss, but it's one of those things that once you've started doing it, you have to see it through till the end. Like when I got to the downpipes, well, I thought to myself, has this even been worth it at all? But of course we're only going to know that when it's all back together and we can start the car up and see if it sounds good. Let's see if it's all been worth it. A massive improvement. It pretty much sounds just like I'd want it to. Not too quiet, not too loud, just in between. Have a listen to it for yourself. When it opens up, it sounds so good. It sounds good, and I think it looks good as well, but you could be the judge of that. Right, so I know it's not the perfect job or the perfect exhaust. A lot of you might think my welding is absolutely dreadful and I shouldn't be let loose with a welder. You're probably right, but as long as it doesn't break off, then I think it's fine. And to me, it's been well worth it. I mean, if I'd have known it would have taken this much effort to fit everything, I probably would have given it a miss and moved on to something else at a later date. But with the turnout on it, I'm pretty happy, and am I glad that I've done it? Yeah, I am, because I've got a pretty good exhaust for a couple £100. Yeah, I've done a bit of cutting, a bit of welding. It isn't great, but I think it's all paid off. So leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. But you do have to bear in mind that not everyone who makes videos on YouTube is a millionaire. So for me, spending a couple £100 sort of really irritating problem out, well, not really a problem, but a really irritating thing out, it's been worth the time and effort that I've put into it. So I'm happy with it. And I know the alignment isn't completely perfect on it, but I can always sort that out at a later date. All I need to do is just adjust that tip and twist it a little bit. To me, it's much more functional overform and it's not too noticeable. It's quite an easy fix. I can just realign the tip, twist it a bit, or go about it a different way, but the main basis of it's there. It all bolts up, it doesn't knock and bang, it sounds pretty good, and it doesn't drone like hell. So I can actually think while I'm driving. We still do have quite a few things to do to it, of course. If you watch the last video, you probably know we need another clutch in it. If you haven't seen it yet, the link's up there. Anyway, we want to get another clutch in it. I'm undecided on what clutch we're going to be putting in it, but I want to get a good clutch that's going to be more than capable to hold any sort of power we throw at this thing, because I feel like if we put another AM one in it, or AM plus, whatever you want to call it, it's just going to tear it to pieces again. So it's not going to be worth our time. So trying to, decide which direction we want to go with that. And, I think when we get a better clutch in it, it's going to make a huge difference to this car, and we don't just want to put any old sort of rubbish in there. So we're going to get a good clutch for it, and then we should also be able to squeeze more power out of it. So once we've got the clutch sorted, I still want to get this on a rolling road and do a few more bits of supercharger first and just see how far we can actually push it. And I think it's going to be more than capable. So of course, you're going to have to stay tuned to watch all of that. So then guys, thanks for watching. And of course, if you're new to the channel, tap down below, hit subscribe, like, comment, share, let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you next video. See you in a bit.